Part 14. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 131. Get up and talk, Chu Qing Huang said calmly. Thank you, Your Highness. There should be many people who are friends with you among the princes of the imperial family. Chu Xuanyi was silent. He couldn't figure out her intention for a while, so he didn't dare to speak. There are too many corrupt officials in the Western Qi court, and the various factions are working together to deceive the emperor and bully the people. As a result, the national treasury is empty, and most of the 10 orders cannot be transmitted through the forbidden door. Chu Qinghuang's voice was indifferent and casual, like casual chatting. But it clearly conveys a sense of indifference and toughness that cannot be ignored. I need to change the blood of the court, and all the corrupt worms in the various ministries and centers of the court must be cleaned out. This means that a large number of loyal and reliable people are needed, people replaced. Chu Xuanyi understood what she meant, but still did not speak rashly. You go back and draw up a list of names for me, Chu Qinghuang said. We will not avoid relatives in internal promotions. As long as the person is available, no matter what relationship he has with you, I will not have any prejudice against him. Ministers with qualifications, those in the royal family who are capable but not reused, and sons from aristocratic families who have outstanding knowledge and ability, all can be recommended. I don't care about their background when hiring people, but their ability, loyalty, and character are all indispensable. Chu Xuanyi was silent for a moment. Your Highness, this seems to be against the rules. Illegal? Chu Qinghuang glanced at him. What do you think this palace is going to do? Directly arrange for them to join the court. Chu Xuanyi. Isn't it? Just make up the list, you don't have to worry about the rest. Even if you arrange for reliable people, you need to go step by step and enter the court through formal methods. It is impossible to replace everyone in one day. Yes. Chu Qinghuang asked calmly, how is Chu Xuanyi's injury? There is no serious problem. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness, Chu Xuanyi replied. I plan to take him with me tomorrow to practice. I hope Your Highness will allow it. The injury healed pretty quickly. Chu Xuanyi was silent for a moment, and said truthfully, the imperial guards are actually not much different from many servants in the palace. They are both good at observing people's actions and words. My father is still somewhat favored in the court, so the guards took action against Xian Yu. Only the skin and flesh were injured, not the muscles and bones. There are many techniques for performing staff duties in the palace, and the royal guards are especially proficient in these skills. They can treat some hated people in such a way that the injuries don't look serious when they do it, but they are very painful on the inside. When dealing with people who are prestigious in the court or who are favored by the emperor, the same method will only hurt the skin and flesh, but not the bones and muscles. No matter how serious the skin or flesh injury is, it will heal quickly if you use more good medicines. After being bedridden for half a month, you can move freely without any problem. However, injuries to muscles and bones will take at least several months to recover. Prince Yi is very honest. Chu Qinghuang looked at him with a rather surprised expression. Aren't you worried that I will give them another severe punishment? Chu Xuanyi lowered his eyebrows. I dare not play with my thoughts in front of His Highness. In this case, you send someone to call over the noble disciples who were punished that day, and I will have a chat with them. Chu Xuanyi responded respectfully, yes. Snap. Suddenly there was a crisp sound. Chu Xuanyi looked up subconsciously, only to see Chu Qinghuang holding a cane and hitting the back of the boy opposite him with a snap. A swollen mark soon appeared on the boy's trimmed back. Wrong, try again. Chu Xuanyi's eyes fell on the chessboard, and he wondered for a moment, was the eldest princess teaching chess to someone who couldn't even reach the entry level? This thought just flashed through his mind, and Chu Xuanyi quickly came back to his senses. Her Royal Highness's affairs were not matters that could be interfered at will. If your Highness has nothing else to do, I will take my leave first. Chu Xuanyi lowered his head. If your highness is called upon to do anything, I will call you at any time. Chu Qinghuang hummed and tapped the cane on the chessboard. Have some snacks and don't get distracted. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 132. Empress, Nani Zhao hurriedly walked into Ganquan Palace, holding a stack of palace hairpin invitations in her hand, with an obviously strange look on her face. I can't deliver the invitation. Concubine Duan, who was being dressed by the palace maid, frowned. The post cannot be delivered? What do you mean? Aunt Zhao said, the chief steward of the inner court has just issued an order, strictly prohibiting the palace attendants around the concubine from leaving the palace at will. If there is something important that must leave the palace, they must report to the chief steward, who will report to the emperor for approval before they can be released. It's strictly forbidden for palace residents to leave the palace. Concubine Duan's face suddenly changed. No one is allowed. Yes. Concubine Duan's expression was a little ugly. Didn't you tell the inner court that I would hold a flower viewing banquet in the imperial garden? My slave said it, but the chief steward said that no one can leave the palace at will. Even if the queen mother or someone close to the queen wants to leave the palace, the same rules apply. It's simply presumptuous. Concubine Duan's expression darkened. You didn't ask why. The specific situation is not clear yet, but this is the ban issued by the emperor just yesterday. Aunt Zhao was uneasy. Mother, is it possible that she has something to do with the eldest princess? The emperor's ban? Concubine Duan's expression was cold. Thinking of the emperor's gentle smile yesterday and his attitude after leaving Ganquan Palace, the ominous premonition in her heart became stronger. She sat silently on the brocade couch and said in an indifferent tone, when the emperor comes down to court, ask him to come over. Yes. Concubine Duan sat on the couch and thought coldly. She was indeed right. That dead girl Qing Huang must have been lying in front of the emperor and said things that were not good for the Ling family, which caused the emperor to have a cold attitude towards her. The emperor is really a wise king. Chu Qing Huang believes whatever she says, just because she offends people everywhere. Ability. The atmosphere in today's morning session was particularly depressing. Oh no, it should be said that the atmosphere in the morning session for several days in a row has been extremely depressing. His Majesty the Emperor was sitting on the dragon throne, his eyes slowly sweeping over the civil and military officials. He stopped for a moment when he glanced at Ling Anken, the general, and then turned away without leaving any trace. Today's meeting, I have something very important to do. Report. A high-pitched and urgent voice suddenly sounded outside the palace, and a man in black armor and holding a sword hurriedly entered the palace. 800 miles urgent message. Report to the Emperor, someone in Jinghu Mountain in the northwest has gathered more than 80,000 troops and started a rebellion. Please make your decision. The air in the court hall froze, and the faces of all the civil and military officials changed. 800 miles urgent? Someone started a rebellion? The emperor's expression was solemn. Send it up. Yes. Chen Hai stepped down from Danbai, took the letter from the black-armored soldier, turned around and hurriedly walked up to Danbai, and presented the letter to the emperor with both hands. Ling Anken frowned. Someone in Hushan, northwest, started a rebellion? Why didn't he receive any news? That's so audacious. The emperor was instantly furious after reading the urgent letter from 800 miles. I will never forgive you lightly. Which of you will go to the northwest to quell the rebellion? The civil and military officials of the Manchu dynasty looked at each other in shock. Father, King Ling stood up and bowed. Now we should first find out the ins and outs of this war, who is in charge, and whether there is any secret dealings with northern Xinjiang. When other ministers heard this, they all felt that the statement was reasonable. Yes, northern Xinjiang has always been ambitious. Maybe they were the instigators. Otherwise, how could someone suddenly rebel? There are all three religions and 9 streams in the Jinghu mountain area. There has always been chaos and bandits. Pei Shu used countless soldiers, horses, and money to suppress the bandits every year, but the suppression became more and more chaotic. Now there are people who even dare to rebel. Rong Wang said in a deep voice, I propose to send troops immediately to suppress the rebellion, so that the rebels can be punished and the power of our emperor can be shaken. My son means the same thing. Chu Tianzheng came out and bowed in salute. General Ling is the first general of the Western Qi dynasty. My son proposed that General Ling lead the troops to put down the rebellion. Other ministers from Duanfei's faction nodded in agreement. The Ling family has been in power for a long time, but has not gone to war for a long time. Many people outside think that the Ling family has been prosperous because of concubine Duan's favor. If General Ling can lead troops to suppress the rebellion, then no matter whether he is in the court in the hall, or in the hearts of Ziki's subjects, this status will be different in an instant. Only generals with outstanding military exploits are truly respected from the bottom of their hearts. It is now a critical time for the fifth prince to compete for the throne. If Ling Anken can successfully wipe out the rebels, it will also be of great benefit to concubine Duan and her son. I think that Her Royal Highness the eldest princess can also lead troops to quell the rebellion. Feng Xiang stood up and spoke respectfully. The eldest princess has strong martial arts and unparalleled strategies. If she can accumulate military merit by countering the rebellion, it will further demonstrate the majesty of the royal family and our emperor. Shen Ming's decision is also the best experience for the eldest princess. As soon as the statement came out, officials from the third prince's party also expressed their opinions. Prime Minister Feng's proposal is a good one. I second the proposal. Your Royal Highness, the eldest princess, is both civil and military, but she lacks some military achievements. However, she was able to successfully suppress the rebellion this time. She will serve the emperor better in the future and become a true eldest princess of 11 Qi. His Majesty the Emperor was sitting on the dragon throne, calmly listening to the words of the ministers below, his expression unfathomable, and he did not say a word for a long time. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 133. Concubine Duan and her group of ministers wanted Ling Anken to counter the rebellion because the Ling family had military power and military merits, so they could stand on their own feet. Soldiers who had been on the battlefield had a clear understanding of the general's abilities, which could better ensure their loyalty. And Feng Xiang's party proposed to let the eldest princess go, so they naturally had their own plans. Although the eldest princess is the daughter of concubine Duan, whether the military merit is in the hands of Ling Anken or Chu Qinghuang, it will not be of any benefit to the third prince's faction, but this proposal can invisibly drive a wedge between the Ling family and the eldest princess. Relationship. Chu Qinghuang's temper was obvious to all the ministers in the palace. If she wanted military glory, then whoever blocked her way would be her enemy, even if that person was her uncle. In addition, Feng Xiang has other plans. With Chu Qinghuang leading the troops outside, he would have a better chance to send people to assassinate him. With Chu Qinghuang by his side, he felt like there was a thorn in his heart all the time. Holding back would only make him hurt. He thought about it day and night. Let's get rid of this thorn. Unless Chu Qinghuang dies, the Feng family and the third prince will never have a chance to make a comeback. Ling Anken, His Majesty the Emperor, finally spoke, his voice deep and full of imperial majesty. Are you willing to go to the northwest to quell the rebellion? Ling Anken knelt down and said, Go back to the Emperor, I am willing. In this case, you will assemble your army early tomorrow morning and head to Jinghu Mountain in the northwest. I will give you 3 months to kill all the rebels. I obey the decree. Retreat. The Emperor stood up and left. The civil and military officials from all over the court respectfully said, "Long live my emperor, long live, long live." Ling An was relieved. It seemed that the emperor had no suspicion about the Ling family. The emperor already knew about the previous conflict between the Ling family and the eldest princess, but he had not expressed his stance yet. Brother Ling Anja, who was the Minister of Civil Affairs at the time, came over and spoke in a low voice, "Do you think the emperor is dissatisfied with the Ling family?" "The emperor's heart is unpredictable." Ling Ankan spoke calmly and also lowered his voice, "but regardless of whether he is dissatisfied or not, the emperor cannot touch the Ling family for the time being. When I come back from suppressing the rebellion, the emperor will take advantage of the opportunity of meritorious service to ask for Ling Jing back. The emperor should not refuse." Ling Anja frowned, "That's all we can do for the time being. Let's let Ling Jing suffer for a while. He is still injured. Even if the eldest princess wants to do something, she should wait until he recovers from his injuries." The two of them walked out of the palace while talking, feeling dissatisfied with Chu Qing Huang to the extreme. This princess was clearly the daughter of concubine Duan, but she did not stand by her mother and concubine. Instead, she seemed to have a grudge against them. Same. It's just so infuriating. The two went to court. Ling Anja went to work in the Ministry of Civil Affairs, and Ling Ankan left the palace directly and went back to prepare for war. The fifth prince, Chu Tianzheng, was stopped by the imperial guard on his way to Ganquan Palace. "The emperor has decreed that the prince is not allowed to enter the harem." Chu Tianzhen's expression changed. "How dare you stop me from going to see my mother-in-law?" "Please forgive me, Your Highness." The guard on duty bowed to apologize, but his attitude was still tough. "The emperor's will cannot be violated, and even in a humble position, one must act according to the order. It's not that the fifth highness cannot see his mother and concubine, even the second highness can't." "Can't see the queen?" Chu Tianzheng felt uneasy. "Why?" "I don't know the humble position." Chu Tianzheng said, "My uncle is about to lead the troops into battle, and I have come here to inform my mother and concubine." "Your Highness, please forgive me." The guard still refused to give in. "I dare not disobey the emperor's will because I am humble and humble. Please forgive me, Your Highness." Chu Tianzheng looked at him coldly for a long time, saw that he was unmoved, and left angrily. When his uncle comes back from the rebellion and has accumulated military merits, the Ling family will become famous, and his mother-in-law will be even more favored in the harem. His fifth highness will be a big step closer to the position of heirloom. Let's see how he cleans up these things. The news that Ling Ankan was ordered to quell the rebellion quickly spread to the eldest princess's palace. Chu Qing Huang had no reaction after hearing this. After Fukang lost miserably again, he frowned and said, "Are you Kukaki?" Fukang looked at the white stones on the chessboard, and the few black stones surrounded by solitary. It was obvious that the whole army had been annihilated. He was silent for a long time, stood up and knelt down, and raised his hands proactively. "This subordinate is stupid, please punish me, master." The two slender white hands, both on the backs and palms, were covered with bruises from being beaten with canes, and they looked really pitiful. Chu Qing Huang stared at his hand expressionlessly for a while. "Forget it, let's take a rest today and continue tomorrow." After saying that, she got up and walked out. "I'm going to the west courtyard to see Ling Jing." "You can go too." "Yes." After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 134. Ling Jing, who had been tortured all night, looked as if he had just been fished out of the water. He was pale and embarrassed, his hair was wet with cold sweat, and the scars on his body were swollen and white after being soaked in sweat. His whole body looked much worse. "How embarrassing it is." After Hong Yu had a good sleep, she looked good and was in good spirits. Against the background of the Ling family's embarrassment, the originally handsome young man became even more beautiful and noble, as if he was a fairy from heaven. It's so pitiful. He stood in front of the bed, looking at someone who seemed to be breathing more out and less in, and shook his head. I thought you had a body made of steel. How come you don't look like a human after just one night? How can we have fun if this continues? Chu-Ling Chuan signaled, take out the cloth from his mouth. Hong Yu frowned, looking at the blood and sweat on Ling Jing's face, and took a step back in disgust. I don't earn this money, it's so dirty. Chu-Ling Chuan said, Qi-Ling, 1,000 taels. Last night, the four of them had a chance to make money before Qi-Ling. Chu-Ling Chuan felt that they should act fairly and not treat anyone differently. It doesn't matter whether it's money or not. Qi-Ling walked over, grabbed the rag, pulled it out, and threw it aside. But with Mr. Chu's arrogance, Qi's disobedience cannot be justified. The mouth that had been blocked all night finally got a chance to breathe. Ling Jing was like a dying fish finally getting water, panting rapidly. However, after suffering all night and not getting any water, his mouth was so dry that it turned to skin. People are becoming more and more disgusted with it. The more you look at it, the uglier it becomes. Hong Yu frowned. Don't such ugly people often look in the mirror? They are not very good people, and they are really courageous. Chu-Ling Chuan looked at his ankles that were shackled and thought for a moment. I think he may need to go to the toilet now. As soon as he finished speaking, the four people next to him all stepped back. No matter how much money I make, I won't do this job. Chu-Ling Chuan glanced at them unhurriedly. Why are you so nervous? I didn't ask you to serve him. Hong Yu was shocked. Master Chu, do you want to serve him personally? Such a thick golden thigh, how could you condescend to serve such a thing? Chu-Ling Chuan took out a dagger from his boot, walked to the bed and cut the rope on Ling Jing's hand, threw a black ball into Ling Jing's mouth, and said in a calm tone, if Mr. Ling wants to go to the toilet, you can do it now. Get up and solve it. If you can't get up or move, just keep holding it in. Wen Zhan glanced at the shackles on his ankles. Master Ling is a martial arts practitioner, so he shouldn't lose strength so quickly. It was only then that Ling Jing calmed down a little. He opened his sweaty eyes and looked at Chu-Ling Chuan with cold and resentful eyes. You will definitely regret it if you dare to do this to me. No, Chu-Ling Chuan's voice was gentle, and he obviously didn't care about his eyes and verbal threats. You will never have a chance to stand up again. After a pause, he said calmly, from today on, Mr. Ling can pray at any time that he can simply get a whole body. Although this is a luxury wish for you, you can still dream while you are alive. Hong Yu was speechless. Sure enough, Mr. Chu is still ruthless. Wen Zhan, Qi-Ling, and Shen Kongjin all nodded. Her Royal Highness the Princess is here. What? Hong Yu glanced at the extremely ugly and embarrassed Ling Jing, turned around and flew out, and hurriedly stopped in front of the door. Your Highness, the situation inside is not good. Your Highness should not go in, for fear of dirtying His Highness's eyes. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 135. Chu Qing Huang paused and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. What are you doing in there? I didn't do anything, Hong Yu sneered. His Highness is a kind-hearted little fairy. He certainly doesn't want to see others suffer, so we did some shameful things for His Highness to avoid dirtying his hands. Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows. Really? The red-feathered chick nodded like it was pecking at rice. Qi-Ling and Wen Zhan walked out one after another and saluted Chu Qing Huang respectfully. See, Your Royal Highness, the eldest princess. No gift. Young Master Ling is fine, Qi-Ling said respectfully. Your Highness, don't worry. At least until the Ling family is completely destroyed, we will not let him die. Your Highness, you can rest assured. Ling Jing in the room heard their conversation with Chu Qing Huang, and his expression changed. Before he could speak, Chu-Ling Chuan said casually, Master Ling, are you imagining that His Highness will come to save you? Ling Jing looked at him coldly. In the past, the look in his eyes might have frightened some timid people, but after the torture last night, the look in his eyes coupled with his embarrassed appearance, not to mention the least bit intimidating, was just how he looked. Like a wretch. It's okay to dream, and there's nothing wrong with having fantasies, but fantasies are always unrealistic. Chu Ling Chuan said in an indifferent tone. What reason do you have to believe that Her Royal Highness the Princess will come to save you? Ling Jing clutched the mattress underneath him, veins popped out on the back of his hands, his eyes were sinister and terrifying. It is indeed impossible for Chu Qinghuang to save him. Chu Qinghuang's contribution to his ability to enter the eldest princess's mansion was indispensable. Damn bitch. He should have acted earlier, brought that superior bitch into his house, locked her up with iron chains, broken her arms, disabled her martial arts, used a sharp dagger to cut off all her hamstrings and hand tendons, and let her she lay on the ground like a useless person, letting him drive and train her. Rather than like this. Ling Jing felt a strong hatred in his heart, and he really regretted that he had not acted earlier. The hatred in your eyes is quite strong. Who are you cursing in your heart? Ling Jing closed his eyes, hatred boiling in his heart. Outside the house, Chu Qinghuang's bright face was suddenly covered with a layer of frost, and his tone was ruthless, cut off his hand tendons and hamstrings and make him crawl on the ground like a dog. After leaving these words, she turned and left. Hong Yu stared at Chu Qinghuang's leaving figure in astonishment, then turned to look at Qi Ling and Wenzhan. Your Highness seems very angry. I'm really not happy, Qi Ling said thoughtfully. I think he was angry with the dirty guy in the room. Wenzhan nodded. So. Of course I will do as I am told. Hong Yu turned around and entered the room. His Royal Highness has ordered that all the limbs and tendons of this Ling family bug be picked out and let him crawl on the ground. Ling Jing opened his eyes, his pupils shrank suddenly, and the blood all over his body seemed to solidify instantly. Chu Qinghuang, she. Dagger. Hong Yu walked up to Chu Ling Chuan and stretched out his hand towards him. I am good at cutting off the tendons of hands and feet, so you don't need to pay. I volunteer to serve His Highness. Chu Ling Chuan handed him the dagger. Others moved out of the way to make room for him. Hong Yu turned around and looked. Who can give me a face towel? His blood is too dirty and smelly. What should I do if it splashes on me? Are you so stupid? Qi Ling frowned. Can't you stay away from him? Or are you not good at it? After hearing what he said, Hong Yu patted his head as if he had just reacted. Yeah, why didn't I think of it? After saying that, he quickly took a few steps back and stood at least 3 feet away from the bed. Then he raised his dagger and aimed it at Ling Jing's wrist. You can hide, but I remind you, the more you hide, the more likely you will be today. The more you suffer, your hands and feet are destined to be crippled anyway. If I can succeed earlier, you will suffer less. Ling Jing looked sharply at the dagger in his hand. He suddenly struggled violently and struggled to sit up with his upper body. However, his legs were dragged by the heavy shackles, making his center of gravity unstable, and he fell directly onto the bed. Bang! Ling Jing fell to the ground in a state of embarrassment, and the iron ball tied to his shackles hit his leg hard, causing his eyes to darken in pain and his body to twitch. Hong Yu frowned and looked at him with a particularly subtle look. Are you begging me for mercy? Zhong Zongjin sneered. Master Ling is so strong-willed, how can he beg for mercy from you? Xiao Yuer is joking. Well, it doesn't look like he's asking for mercy. Hong Yu pouted, and the dagger in his hand suddenly flew out like an arrow from the string. Bah! Ah! Ling Jing screamed, and his body that was about to be propped up could no longer hold steady and fell to the ground with a plop. The dagger stabbed into his wrist accurately, hitting the tendons. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 136. Several people were dealing with Ling Jing in the west courtyard, but after noon, the Ling family suddenly heard a shocking news. General Ling was seriously ill and bedridden. What? This was really confusing. Wasn't he fine in the palace this morning? He was strong and healthy, and he could kill a cow without any problem. How come he was seriously ill and bedridden just after receiving the imperial edict and preparing to go out to quell the rebellion? When the news reached the palace, the emperor was shocked and angry, seriously ill. Wasn't he fine this morning? How come he suddenly became seriously ill? Slave doesn't know. Call a few doctors. The emperor stood up. Leave the palace, I will go to the Ling family to see it myself. Yes. Chen Hai hurried to prepare. Chu Xuanyi arranged the imperial guards to protect the emperor's safety, and the emperor's ceremonial guards marched out of the palace and headed straight for the Ling family. Ling Anja led all the family members to kneel down and greet the emperor. Long live the emperor, long live the emperor, long live the emperor. What happened to General Ling? The emperor looked at Ling Anja, who was kneeling in the front. His expression did not look good. Wasn't he fine in the morning? How come he suddenly? This sentence was obviously questioning. Ling Anja's expression was stern, and he bowed his head and replied respectfully, reporting to the emperor, my brother's condition is indeed strange. What's going on? It's strange. My brother felt unbearable pain in his lungs as soon as he returned to the mansion. The doctor couldn't see any symptoms. I thought it was nothing serious and it would pass. Unexpectedly, it became more and more serious. After lunch, he suddenly vomited blood and couldn't even stand up. Ling Anja explained worriedly, I heard the news and hurried back from the Ministry of Personnel. I saw my brother lying on the bed unconscious. The emperor frowned, take me to see. Yes. Ling Anja got up quickly, Your Majesty, please come in. Chu Xuanyi and the imperial masters followed the emperor silently, and the other royal guards stayed outside the mansion waiting, with a solemn and dignified aura that made people palpitate. The group walked to the main courtyard and smelled a pungent smell of medicine before entering the house. The emperor frowned and stepped over the threshold with Ling Anja. The first wife, the second wife and other female members of the Ling family were not allowed to approach the emperor without permission, so they could only kneel outside and wait. Ling Ankan was lying on the bed in a daze, his face pale and his spirit was exhausted. Ling Anja walked over and called him several times before he opened his eyes and woke up. Brother, the emperor is here. Ling Ankan struggled to get up and salute, but heard the emperor say indifferently, if General Ling is uncomfortable, just lie down, no need to be polite. Ling Ankan forced himself to prop up his body, his elbows on the edge of the bed. Your Majesty, your minister, your minister. What did the doctor say? Reporting to the emperor, two doctors knelt beside him. The general's symptoms are very strange. I can't find the root cause of the disease after repeated examinations, and it doesn't look like poisoning. Are there any external injuries? Reporting to the emperor, there are no external injuries. Ling Ankan's face was pale and gloomy. No external injuries, no root cause, and it doesn't look like poisoning. The emperor would definitely suspect that he was unwilling to send troops, so he suddenly pretended to be sick at this time. But he really wasn't pretending to be sick. The emperor ordered the accompanying imperial physicians to come forward and feel his pulse. Several imperial physicians took turns to look, smell, ask and feel, all with puzzled expressions. Your Majesty, General Ling's pulse really doesn't show anything abnormal. I'm not a good doctor, and I didn't find any abnormal symptoms. As the imperial physicians reported one after another, the two Ling brothers' hearts gradually sank, and their faces became more and more stagnant. The emperor said calmly, will the general be able to lead the troops to quell the rebellion tomorrow morning? Ling Ankan's face suddenly changed. No one knew his physical condition better than him. He had no external injuries or poisoning, but the severe pain in his lungs made him unable to stand up, so how could he lead the troops? The matter of suppressing the rebellion is imminent. Does General Ling have any other solutions? The emperor said in a deep tone. His eyes fell on Ling Ankan's pale face. If General Ling can't lead the troops, who should the rebels send? Ling Ankan was about to speak. Chu Xuanyi beside the emperor had already spoken. Your Majesty. The emperor and the Ling brothers turned their heads at the same time and looked at Chu Xuanyi. I think the eldest princess can go, Chu Xuanyi said indifferently. The eldest princess is both civil and military, and has strong combat effectiveness. It should be no problem to suppress the rebellion. The emperor was silent for a moment and looked at Ling Ankan. What do you think, General Ling? Did Ling Ankan dare to say no? Now that he has a physical problem, it is impossible for him to lead the troops in person. The emperor can only choose another general to lead the troops, but Chu Qinghuang. Chu Xuanyi, the emperor made a prompt decision. Send the eldest princess here immediately. Yes. Chu Xuanyi turned and walked out of the Ling family, walked out quickly, arrived outside the gate, and personally rode to the eldest princess's mansion to convey the order. In the main courtyard, the emperor sat aside, frowning. Doctor, can't you find any symptoms? The doctors all apologized. We are incompetent. The emperor said majestically, General Ling is the pillar of the country and my backbone. No matter what you think, you must find the symptoms as soon as possible and prescribe the right medicine. We obey your order. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 137. The atmosphere in the room was depressing. Even though the emperor said some comforting words, they all knew that such a situation would inevitably cause the emperor and his subjects to have some thoughts before suppressing the rebellion. The most difficult thing was that even if Ling Ankan wanted to explain, he couldn't. Until a sound of footsteps came from outside. Your Majesty, the princess is here. The emperor turned his head and said, Come in. Chu Qinghuang, who was slender, walked through the courtyard and passed by the two ladies. She paused and looked at the face of Mrs. Ling from the second room. She said in a cold tone, Second aunt has raised a good son. This palace has opened her eyes. This was the first time that Chu Qinghuang called her second aunt. For the second wife, it was obviously not an honor. It was like a basin of ice water poured over her head in winter, and she was so cold that she was shivering all over. Mrs. from the second room turned pale. Just as she was about to speak, she saw Chu Qinghuang had already walked into the house without looking back. The girl's back was slender and tall, as cold as a mountain, revealing a noble and coldness from above, like a phoenix looking down on all living things from the sky, noble and inviolable. Ji's face turned pale. Stepping over the threshold, Chu Qinghuang's eyes turned slightly and saw the emperor sitting on the chair, Ling Ankan half lying on the bed with his elbows, Ling Anja standing beside the bed, several doctors and imperial doctors kneeling on the ground, and the master of the imperial guard standing beside the emperor. The people in the room, but no one spoke, all looked at Chu Qinghuang who came in. Then realizing that they were being rude, the doctors and imperial physicians bowed their heads, and the masters beside the emperor bowed their heads silently. Ling Anja naturally did not dare to be arrogant in front of the emperor, and walked over to bow to see the eldest princess. Uncle, no need to be polite, Chu Qinghuang said in a calm tone, and then looked at the emperor. Father, do you want to summon me for something? There is a rebellion in Jinghu Mountain in the northwest, the emperor said calmly. At the morning court today, it was decided that General Ling would lead the troops to suppress the rebellion. After returning home, General Ling suddenly became ill and should not be able to go to suppress the rebellion. I plan to let you go. Chu Qinghuang was silent for a moment. Suppress the rebellion. The emperor nodded. Chu Qinghuang said calmly, how many soldiers are needed? 80,000 rebels have gathered in Jinghu Mountain, and their fighting power is still unknown. If you go, the journey is long, and you must bring at least 100,000 elite soldiers. All the soldiers and horses will be exhausted. If you bring less, I'm afraid you won't be able to successfully suppress the rebellion and capture the rebel leader within 3 months. The emperor frowned and said in a deep tone, besides, this is your first time to lead troops to fight, so bringing more soldiers will be more foolproof. Chu Qinghuang nodded, yes. The Silver Armor Army has strong fighting power. The emperor finally got to the point, and his expression remained unchanged. Let General Ling give you the military token, and the Silver Armor Army will be under your command for the time being. Military token? Ling Ankan and Ling Anja's faces changed at the same time. Your Majesty. The emperor turned his head to look at the two of them. His eyes were not angry but dignified. Do you two have anything to say? Ling Ankan's heart was beating wildly, and a sense of inexplicable uneasiness swept over him. He didn't know what caused this uneasiness, nor did he know what the emperor wanted to do, but the military token is the biggest confidence of the Ling family. Why give it to Chu Qinghuang? Although she is the daughter of concubine Duan, Chu Qinghuang is too unruly and is not on the same line with them at all. What does it mean to give her the military token? It means that the Ling family is no longer the largest military family in Ziki, and no longer the strongest backing of concubine Duan. If one day concubine Duan or the Ling family loses the emperor's heart, the emperor wants to deal with them, and they can only let them be slaughtered. Uncle, are you reluctant to give up the military token? Chu Qinghuang looked at Ling Ankan with a cold and transparent gaze, as if she wanted to see his thoughts clearly. It takes soldiers to suppress the rebellion. Uncle, don't you think that I can destroy the 80,000 soldiers of the rebels with my bare hands? I don't mean that. Ling Ankan was shocked and lowered his head quickly. The pain in his lungs became even worse, making him confused for a while. It's just that several generals in the Silver Armor Army have bad tempers and are difficult to get along with. I'm worried. Uncle, don't worry about anything, Chu Qinghuang said coldly. I have my own way to make them obedient. Ling Ankan's arms softened and he lay weakly on the bed. Brother, Ling Anja quickly helped him up. How are you? Ling Ankan's face was pale and he was panting rapidly. He wanted to say something, but found that he had nothing to say at this time. He thought that the emperor came to visit him in person to confirm whether his illness was true or not, but at this time he finally realized that the emperor came in person to ask for his military power. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 138. Ling Ankan grasped the edge of the bed with both hands, feeling furious but helpless. His current physical condition is really not enough to fight, but the suppression of the rebellion cannot be delayed. The emperor has made up his mind to take over the Silver Armor Army in his hands. Can he refuse? From an angle that the emperor and Chu Qinghuang didn't see, Ling Ankan winked at Ling Anja and painstakingly wrote 2 words on the edge of the bed, Ling Yan. Ling Anja nodded carefully and turned to look at the emperor, with a hint of worry on his face. Your Majesty, I have a suggestion. Explain. Her Royal Highness, the eldest princess, has strong martial arts skills, but has no combat experience. I thought that I could let Ling Yan take charge, and her eldest princess will follow me to practice and accumulate merits. Ling Anja's tone was respectful and humble, and he sounded sincere. In this way, both there is no need to worry about the dissatisfaction of the soldiers, and there is no need to worry about His Majesty's lack of combat experience. If something unexpected happens on the battlefield, does the Emperor think this proposal is feasible? Second uncle, do you mean to let me obey Ling Yan's orders? Chu Qinghuang said indifferently. How many times has he been on the battlefield? This. Ling Anja's face changed slightly, and he was suddenly speechless. Ling Yan often goes in and out of the military camp. Does frequenting the military camp mean that he knows how to fight? Chu Qinghuang's tone suddenly turned cold. Does someone who frequents the palace mean that he has the ability to be an emperor? Ling Anji's face turned pale and he knelt on the ground with a plop. I definitely don't mean this. Please understand, Your Majesty. His Majesty the Emperor was also helpless. Qing Huang, pay attention to your wording. What does everyone who comes in and out of the palace have the ability to be an emperor mean? Can this sentence be said casually? Fortunately, he was an enlightened emperor, otherwise this sentence would have punished her for treason. But then again, apart from Qing Huang, probably no one else dared to say this, and it was in front of him as the emperor. This shows that Qing Huang has a really straight temper and does not bend at all. Let's do this. The emperor felt that he was particularly easy to talk to. I sent Ling Yan to come and ask and hear his thoughts. Ling Anja breathed a sigh of relief. If the Silver Armor Army's military talisman is given to Ling Yan, at least it will still be in the hands of the Ling family. When Ling Yan comes back from suppressing the rebellion and has accumulated military merits, whether the military talisman is returned to Ling Ankan or Ling Yan is in charge of it, for Ling Yan no home was damaged. Chu Qinghuang's temperament is too unpredictable and unpredictable. Who knows who she will help in the future? If she got hot-headed and turned against her mother and ran to help the queen, they would probably regret it so much that their intestines would turn green. Chu Qinghuang stood aside, with no special expression on his face. Ling Yan hurried back from the military camp after hearing what happened to his father. He had been standing outside just now. Chen Hai went out to deliver the order. Not long after, he walked in, knelt down and saluted. "See you, the Emperor, see the eldest princess, Your Highness." No need to be polite. The Emperor's eyes fell on Ling Yan. "Your second uncle proposed that you go on the expedition for your father. What do you think?" Ling Yan was already prepared and thought of this possibility when he was waiting outside. After hearing this, he respectfully replied, "Serving the Emperor is the place for a minister, eh?" Before he finished speaking, Ling Yan's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly reached out to cover his chest with a look of pain on his face. "Yan'er," Ling Anja stepped forward quickly. "What's wrong with you?" The Emperor said in a deep voice, "Imperial physician." The Imperial doctor was also a little nervous by this scene, and he quickly stepped forward to check. The three Imperial doctors took turns to check the pulse, but they could not find anything wrong, and their expressions couldn't help but be weird. Chu Qinghuang watched expressionlessly as Ling Yan arched his body in pain, and said coldly, "Master Ling shouldn't be faking it, right?" As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the three Imperial doctors became more and more subtle. In fact, they also wanted to know whether the Ling family and his son were just faking it. There are obviously no symptoms, so why does it hurt here and there? It makes them seem like quacks. Ling Anja looked at the Emperor in fear. The Emperor sat on the chair without saying a word, his face as dark as water, and a bit of suppressed anger could be seen in his brows and eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 139. The atmosphere in the room was extremely depressing. I see that young Master Ling is also in a physical condition and is unable to lead the troops to put down the rebellion, the Emperor said coldly. In this case, it is better to give the talisman of the Silver Armor Army to the eldest princess. The matter of putting down the rebellion cannot be delayed. General Ling, you should not refuse my will. Ling Ankan's heart sank, and he wanted to stand up and plead guilty, but he had no strength at all, and his soft feeling made him unable to even explain. I don't dare, he gritted his teeth secretly. I'm just ordering people to get the military talisman. Ling Anja turned his head in disbelief and wanted to speak to stop him, but the Emperor and the eldest princess were both there, but he couldn't say a word. There is clearly something fishy about what happened today. If something happened to Ling Ankan, something happened to Ling Yan. However, the rebellion was about to be suppressed, and the emperor personally came to ask for the military talisman. The evil-looking Chu Qinghuang had a cold and ruthless attitude. There were also royal guards guarding the gate of the Ling family. It was impossible for them to tip off the news, and it was impossible to delay it. They wanted to give silver armor. Several close generals in the army were completely unable to deliver letters. Like a turtle in a urn, he was forced to surrender his military power. "Anja, go to my study and get the military talisman yourself." Ling Ankan endured the severe pain in his heart and had to give instructions. From now on, the military power of the Silver Armor Army will be handed over to Her Royal Highness the Princess. He is showing loyalty. At this moment, he had no choice but to show his loyalty. The rebellion was about to be suppressed. If he refused to hand over military power, it would only make the emperor feel that the Ling family was disloyal. The ruthless Chu Qinghuang would never let go of this opportunity to put the Ling family to death. So after careful consideration, Ling Ankan decided to hand over the military talisman first. Eliminating the emperor's wariness and displeasure was the key. As for the rest, several high-ranking generals in the Silver Armor Army are all confidants of the Ling family. It is impossible to truly obey Chu Qinghuang, a yellow-haired girl. As long as she leads the troops and leaves the imperial city, someone will naturally teach her who the master of the Silver Armor Army is. Ling Anja was unable to get off the tiger, so he could only nod his head, said goodbye to the emperor, turned around and walked out. Chu Qinghuang's expression was indifferent from beginning to end, as if everything that happened in front of her had nothing to do with her. When Ling Anja went to the study to get the military talisman, someone followed him all the way. They were not worried that he would have other evil thoughts on his own initiative. Not long after, Ling Anja left and returned, holding a military talisman made of black iron in his hand, with the mark of the Silver Armor Army engraved on it. The moment the military talisman was presented to the emperor, Ling Anja felt so uneasy that his hands holding the military talisman trembled a little, as if handing over this military talisman also handed over the fate of the Ling family. However, he had no second choice at this time. Ling Ankan was lying on the bed with unknown symptoms, Ling Yan was curled up on the ground with unknown symptoms, and his son Ling Jing was seriously injured and bedridden in the princess's mansion. The Ling family seems to be having bad luck lately. It was clear that the third prince and the Feng family were the ones responsible for the bad luck some time ago. Before they had time to celebrate the downfall of the third prince and the Feng family, they did not expect that the situation would turn to them. The Ling family actually faced a similar situation. And all this is because of Chu Qinghuang. There has never been a moment when Ling Anja so strongly hoped that Chu Qinghuang was not concubine Duan's daughter, so that they would not have to look at concubine Duan's face or take into account this level of kinship. If they wanted to get rid of her, they could send out troops without any scruples. The powerful killer launched a dragnet-like assassination method, leaving her with nowhere to escape and had no choice but to die. Qinghuang His Majesty the Emperor handed the military talisman to Chu Qinghuang and breathed a sigh of relief. "You will go to the military camp tonight to reorganize the troops and horses, and tomorrow morning, no, I will give you another day to meet with the soldiers tomorrow. Let's get together and set off early the next day to fight the rebellion at Jinghu Mountain." Chu Qinghuang took the military talisman and lowered his eyebrows. "My son, I obey the order. Since General Ling and young Master Ling are ill, they will stay in the mansion and have a good rest for the past 2 days. The imperial doctor will stay to diagnose their pulses and find out the cause of their illness." His Majesty the Emperor stood up and said, "Don't be negligent, Ling. If there is anything wrong with the general, neither I nor concubine Duan will spare you." The imperial doctor responded quickly, "I obey the order. Your Majesty, please rest assured." The emperor turned around and walked out. "Go back to the palace." Ling Anja and everyone in the Ling family sent him off respectfully. Ling Yan was kneeling on the ground with his body propped up. His face was so pale that he didn't know whether it was from pain or anger. He looked like he was terminally ill. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 140. With a large crowd of people from the Ling family bidding him farewell, the emperor walked out of the Ling family mansion, sat on the dragon chariot, turned his head and looked at Chu Qing Huang standing beside him, and said calmly, "Chen Hai. Your servant is here. Bring the dragon whip here." "Yes." Chen Hai raised his hand to signal, and a man in black guard uniform came over, holding a long box covered with bright yellow silk cloth in both hands, knelt on one knee, and respectfully presented it to Chu Qing Huang. Chen Hai stepped forward to lift the bright yellow silk cloth, opened the box, and smiled respectfully, "Your Highness, take a look and see if you like it. The dragon whip is black, 3 feet and 3 inches long, made of tough and rare dragon tendons, and has great lethality. The whip handle is engraved with golden dragon patterns, which is naturally domineering and noble." Chu Qing Huang took the black whip from the long box without any expression. She held the handle with her slender hands and looked at it carefully. Then she lowered her eyebrows and tried to wrap the whip around her waist. She found that it was just right to tie it around her waist twice. The whip is 3 feet and 3 inches long, which is just right for killing people. Chu Qing Huang said calmly, "You can use it to sacrifice blood tonight. If you like it, I will give it to you. Only you can match this dragon whip." The emperor smiled faintly. "The silver armor army is handed over to you. You should reorganize it in the next 2 days. I will go back to the palace first." Chu Qing Huang looked up at him, silent for a moment, as if she wanted to say something, but when the words came to her lips, she just nodded slowly, "I will make the silver armor army obedient." His Majesty said, "I believe you." Then, he signaled to start. Chen Hai shouted, "Start." Chu Qing Huang took 2 steps back and watched the royal guards escorting the emperor's carriage to leave in a mighty manner without any expression, with a slightly deep brow. The emperor was truly concerned about the country and society of Ziki, so he placed 100% trust in his daughter. He never thought that if Chu Qing Huang was in power one day, would she have a different mind, or rather, he didn't have time to think about it at the moment. When the princess became more powerful in the future, he might also be afraid. But at least for now, whether it was for the sake of the country and society or for his daughter Chu Qing Huang, the emperor had done everything impeccably. Even for this reason, she was willing to make Ziki stronger. Chu Qing Huang silently watched the imperial guards go farther and farther away. After a moment, she turned around and walked towards her mount, and jumped on the horse neatly. "Go to the Zishan camp." Fu Kang asked, "Master, don't you bring more people?" "No need." Chu Qing Huang sat upright on the horse and said in a faint voice, "You are enough." Fu Kang lowered his head in silence, and there was an undetectable softness in his indifferent voice. Yes, he also got on his horse after he finished speaking. Dust was flying, and the sound of horse hooves was like thunder. Chu Qing Huang led Fu Kang straight to the Zishan camp outside the imperial city. "Your Highness went to the military camp." Qi Ling frowned. "When?" "Just left not long ago." Lu Jun said, "I went to the Zishan camp after receiving the military token from the Ling family. I should not have left the city yet." Qi Ling nodded to show that he knew, turned around and walked quickly into the Wutong courtyard of Zishang Pavilion. "Stop playing, I'm going to the Zishan military camp. Who wants to go with me?" "Zishan military camp?" Hong Yu's fingertips were spinning the dagger flexibly, and he stopped the action after hearing the words, looking at Qi Ling in confusion. "What are you going to the military camp for?" "Your Highness went to the military camp." Qi Ling looked at him. "He went alone, and he didn't bring anyone else except the shadow guard Fu Kang." Hong Yu was shocked. "Then I want to go too." Bang! Shen Zongjin picked up Ling Jing, who was lying on the ground and dying, and threw him on the bed. He raised his hand to take a new pair of shackles, and with a click, he neatly locked Ling Jing's hands to the head of the bed. "I'll go too." When Zhan Qi Ling made arrangements, with a matter-of-fact tone, you are just a weak scholar, it won't work if you go, so just stay and look after the house. Weak scholar Wen Zhan. Hong Yu nodded, yes, don't drag us down. What happens in the military camp has nothing to do with weak scholars, Shen Zongjin said, obviously agreeing with Hong Yu and Qi Ling. Wen Zhan stays to look after Master Ling. Wen Zhan was about to say something, but saw Chu Ling Chuan turned his head and looked at him. Take good care of Mr. Ling, I'll leave some medicine for you, if you are bored, you can apply medicine to his wound. Wen Zhan's expression was subtle, a weak scholar wants to be a doctor. You can use him as a practice, anyway, don't let him go to see the king of hell early due to excessive blood loss, Shen Zongjin said, turned around and walked out. Let's take a carriage. As a servant of the emperor, although they have many privileges that servants do not have, the four of them riding together still look too ostentatious, and too conspicuous in the imperial city full of dignitaries. The carriage is too slow and can't catch up with Her Royal Highness the Princess Chu Ling Chuan said in a gentle and calm tone, I'll have someone prepare a fast horse. If you are worried about attracting attention, you can cover your face. There are many dangers in the military camp. What if those who are not obedient to His Royal Highness make a fuss and cause chaos? They have to rush over to support the scene. The four of them walked away quickly while talking, leaving Wen Zhan standing alone in front of the house, like a devoted wife waiting for her husband to return. Weak scholar? Wen Zhan frowned, as if talking to himself, what's wrong with a scholar? Wen can write peace to the world, can you?